right, so this is taking me like 5 hours to figure out here. So this is really frustrating, but I think we are finally at a good spot. So, oh damn it! Hold on, I gotta pick a workout. I'm just riding around. Hold on, we can do it. Oh, I hope it didn't go away. If it went away, I'll be very sad. No, it's there. Perfect. Okay, so this is what we are doing today. So if you look at the workout on the left, we're doing about an hour and 52 minutes. We're doing the Uber Pretzel. So it's 5 rounds. The main set's 5 rounds of 3 minutes at 250, 2 minutes at 230. And, back and forth like that 3 times. And then there's 5 groups of that. So, yeah. And, we're just going to grind it out. And then what I'm going to do is play. If you notice, I keep hitting refresh just the way it's set up. I don't want it to start playing right now in a second. But my interview with Nei-Kuan Chia, 2-time Olympic swimmer, my podcast with him. So enjoy the podcast, and I'll be working out in the background. And here we go.
Hey, we are finally up and running. I apologize for the delay. I'm not the most technologically savvy person in the world, and my guest today has been so patient. I really appreciate it a lot. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce 2-time Olympian and a friend of mine, Nei-Kuan Chia. Nei-Kuan, thanks for hopping on. How you doing, man?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Well, this is, I'll be honest with you, one of the most exciting things that I've done in a while, because I've been Twitch live streaming for a long time, a couple months, and I've also been, I did the first episode about, my life and kind of my journey to getting to the point that I'm at, and I've been talking to myself for a long time, so it's nice to actually have someone on the other end to have a dialogue with. So this is very, very exciting.
I'm happy to be your Wilson.
That's true. That's very true. So thank you for that. So I guess
first off, happy birthday, or happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Once you get to a certain point, you're like, whatever. We're just leveling up at this point, right?
Well, I'm finally glad you turned 21. So now you can come hang out with me.
The big 2-1, man. I'm an adult. Yeah, this is good.
Yeah. We don't have to card you everywhere.
Yeah, well, I'm still pretty short. I am like childlike, so I still get carded everywhere I go. That's why I have a beard, so people know that I'm not a child. So basically, I guess the thing I want to get across first is, the reason for this podcast and the show is, I draw inspiration from, when I thought my athletic career was coming to an end because I was out of college and I was playing semi-pro football, but I know I couldn't do that forever. I started really kind of searching around and looking for a different avenue to kind of get that competitive outlet, kind of quench that thirst, right? And when I started to really engulf myself in the world of triathlon, you're thinking, there's running, there's swimming, and there's biking. So there's just, so many athletes that you can follow and kind of draw inspiration from. And when I first came across your profile, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I think it was something along the lines of, like, I was searching specific hashtags or something like that. And I came across your profile, and it says, like, 2-time Olympian swimmer. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm going to follow this guy. Like, this is awesome. And I'll never forget when I saw the follow back, I'm like, wait a minute, what? So I thought that was pretty cool. So when I came up with this idea for the podcast, and I've been following you, obviously, and you helped me out. I don't know if you remember or not, but you wrote me up a critique about how my motion was when I was swimming. So I appreciate that. It was a lot of critiquing, which I needed. It was good. But You were the first person that really came to mind as an inspiration of someone who continues to compete at a really high level. As you get older, so it's just fitting that you're the first person that I'm talking to in the podcast. So I think the main thing I want to kind of start off with is, the two-time Olympian thing is really cool, and we'll get into that. But as far as I asked you to send me a couple pictures so I could use to kind of lead up to it. And the first picture that you sent me had a laundry list of different, achievements and accolades that you've, accomplished. And it's impressive. So I guess the first thing, let's start at the beginning. Obviously you've been swimming for a very long time. And if you want to kind of talk about a little bit your path to becoming a swimmer and how you got to where you got to today.
Yeah, no, happy to. But first, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be your first guest. And
big day.
I do remember when we were talking, and you sent me the videos of you swimming, and I was looking through and writing it up, and then we chatted afterwards. And you've come a long way, man.
No, I appreciate it. You're a big part of it, so thank you.
Hard work and dedication truly pays off. So, many congratulations to you on that.
Thanks.
I started swimming at the age of 11, and it was kind of a random event. I had a big fear of the water. Growing up, I didn't know how to swim, and I grew up in Florida mostly, so that's pretty awkward with beaches and pools everywhere.
Right.
But I was actually at a water theme park in Panama City, Florida. I grew up in Tallahassee with family, and I didn't know how to swim. I was 11 years old. My dad was holding my hand in the tidal wave pool, and for some crazy reason, he let go. And all of a sudden, I got sucked by the waves into the deep end, and I started to drown. And luckily, a lady, I just remember sinking to the bottom, trying to reach for the top. I just couldn't do it. And then some lady pulled me up. I was coughing. I was choking. And then my mom was worried sick, and the lifeguard came over. And then the next day, my mom, when we got back home, drove me to the local swim club and put me on the swim team. And I remember standing there in the diving well. There's a bunch of 5 and 6 year olds learning how to swim, basically going back and forth in the diving well.
Right.
And I was 11, and I was pretty tall, and I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And I wouldn't get in. I just remember the coach behind me shoving me into the pool. I sank straight down to the bottom, 10 feet deep, and I was like, "Could somebody come and save me?" And but I just remember these tiny kids swimming above me, back and forth, and I was like, "Well, this is embarrassing." So I pushed myself from the bottom up, figure out how to get to the edge of the pool, and then just went from there. About a month and a half later, I ended up competing in my first race. So it was just one of those things where life happens, and random thing happened, and it got me into swimming. And I swam starting that point on. I did mostly summer competitions. My dream had always been to be the first Asian NBA basketball player. So my first love was basketball, and I played through my sophomore year in high school.
And you said you were tall, right? So that helps.
I was tall, but I got to through my sophomore year at high school and playing basketball. I was still swimming too, and so I got to finish my swimming season and got to basketball season my junior year. I had just finished second at state in the 100 freestyle in Florida my junior year. So I go to my basketball coach's office, and he said, "Listen," and I had stopped growing at that point. I was 6'3", and I peaked at my in growth. And my coach sat me down. He said, "Listen, how many NBA players do you see right now that are Asian?" And I thought about it for a second. I said, 0. He's like, "Exactly." He said, "You'd be a decent basketball player. You may get to Division II, maybe Division III." And I hadn't. The only recruiting letter I gotten in basketball thus far was from Emory University. And but swimming, I started getting a lot of attention all of a sudden. And he said, "You can get a full ride to swim in college." And I was like, I said, "Well, if I really wanted to be a professional basketball player, that's my dream." He said, well, I'll go home and think about it. So I went home and thought about it. The next day I came back to my basketball coach and said I quit. I was like, I'm going to focus on swimming. So that then changed kind of how I viewed swimming as a sport. And I never thought about the Olympics. I never really thought about anything in swimming because my whole life I wanted to play professional basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And from that moment on, starting basically halfway through my junior year, I ended up, that was the first time I started doing swimming full time year round. And I got to my senior year in high school. I ended up winning state championships in the 100 freestyle. I went home to Taiwan and I won nationals and made my first Olympic team that summer and went to Atlanta. And I just went from there. I got opportunity to swim at Florida State University. I swam there, for my 4 years of college. And then when I left, I took a deviation. I quit briefly to go to med school, but then after a year of med school, I was like, I need to go back to swim. And so I took a year off from med school, got back in the pool, made my second Olympic team, which was Sydney. And,
That's so
and I never went back to med school. I kept on swimming for the next 4 years after that. And that was my passion. But then, it was a fun time, fun experience. I was young. I finally, but when you're young and as an athlete, you're always geared about winning. Everything was about, I need to win. I need to win. And it became a business, especially after college, where you had all these expectations. You had all these, a lot of it's self-imposed, but people only cared about, if you're winning or you're losing. There was nothing in between. And you had sponsors you had to live up to and expectations there. So it became a business. And I started to feel burned out. We had just the amount of effort we had put in, the amount of training. It just became something where I lost a passion for.
Mm-hmm.
So I quit in 2004. I injured my shoulders and leading into trials.
And Sydney was when?
2000.
Okay.
So 2004, I tried, and I before trials, my shoulders just couldn't take it anymore. So that was it, and I quit. I retired. I moved on with my life. I cut swimming and exercise out of my life 100%.
So at this point, we're talking like you're maybe 25 years old, something like that, and you'd been doing it since you were 11. So you got 14 years of just all out, going as hard as you can. Swimming almost every day, highest competition you possibly can. And then at 25, once it became really like businessy and, kind of sounds like it was a very different vibe than, it was growing up for you.
Yeah, no, you everything was marked on, you call it from high school on, right? You're competing, everybody is focused on you. You're identified as the swimmer, right? Mm-hmm. That's your whole personality, your whole persona. And for a while, that's great. You're known for something, right? Mm-hmm. You're identified as something, and it gives you some kind of self-confidence or whatever. Mm-hmm. But when you get to the point where it becomes a routine, it becomes a business, you start for why you're doing something. Mm-hmm. There's not a purpose behind it. There's not a passion behind it, and it just becomes a grind. So by the time I got to my mid-20s, it was well past. At that time, no one competed in their mid-20s. No one competed in their 30s. You're kind of just done. Mm-hmm. So I moved on. There was no money in swimming. Mm-hmm. You can't really do it professionally and make a living off of it.
There's no NFL of swimming,
No, there's not even. Last year was the first year that was a professional league in swimming.
See, I didn't even know that existed. So there you go.
Yeah, it just started. It's the ISL was in year 1, and then COVID hit. So now it's kind of waiting for year 2 for next year. Yeah. But you didn't have the endorsement dollars. Like you don't have Michael Phelps getting multi-million-dollar endorsements. You didn't have swimwear lines didn't give money to athletes to wear their suits. It just wasn't the thing back then. So there just wasn't money to be made, really. So I had to get a real job and move on with my life.
So here, okay, I'm going to cut you off right here because this is, I think, a good dividing point. First of all, that story, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
The idea of you drowning and eventually becoming, the highest level of, swimmer you could possibly be is what a story, right? Like if for most kids, if your first experience is almost drowning, and then the next day your coach is pushing you in the pool, like most people are going to be like, kids are going to be traumatized. Like, okay, I'm out of here. That's enough of this. So that's crazy interesting. Also, by you saying you swam at Florida State, I have some friends who you just gained some followers. We'll tell you that.
Nice.
Yeah, shout out to
Seminoles,
Lorenzo, Haley, and Kyle.
Garnet and gold.
So they're going to be all jacked up that you said that. The other thing I was going to say, so when you went from post collegiate, that 4 years where you're saying it was all about the business, and it's like the Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last thing, right? What league is that, or what was it? Because I know you obviously just mentioned about that professional league. What were you doing from 21 to 25? Like, where were you competing? What league, or what was that?
Yeah, so I mean, when there wasn't really a league, right, in swimming until recently. So by professional, I had endorsements, I had sponsorships, I had Power Bar, I had Arena Swimwear. Those are my sponsors. Okay. So it was peanuts. I mean, compared to what athletes get these days, I mean, literally it was enough to cover travel and some other stuff. But
you were kind of like trailblazing. It was like the very early days of it, right? Or
yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, I think somewhere around right when I stopped swimming, Michael Phelps signed kind of that first big endorsement contract with Speedo, and that was I think that was around, I want to guess, probably $500,000. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, if that, but that was like the first major, individual who really kind of taken over in terms of endorsements for swimming. But it just wasn't there. I mean, you might be lucky to have enough money to feed yourself, if that. So
you're really doing it for the love of the game, or the sport at that point.
It was about passion. It was about wanting to continue to be an athlete, which is what I was my whole life, and doing something or trying to reach a goal that I set for myself. And unfortunately, it didn't quite pan out exactly the way I wanted to. But swimming these days is a lot different than it was back then too. But the money just wasn't. As an athlete post college, most athletes just stopped because there's no money to support them.
And that's exactly the mindset that behind this whole idea of talking to people like you is, sure, the sport, like the paths may end for a specific sport like swimming, or there's a whole laundry list of athletics that you can do in college that there's just really no track to do professionally. So I know I'm one of these kind of people who that drive to compete doesn't go away. So my goal is to provide different opportunities for people to hear you and be like, and this is going to be the segue to now, you gave up for a little bit, and, I cut you off when you said, I wanted to start, I had to get a job, and move on. And this is where the story for me really starts to get interesting, because I think a lot of people, don't have that channel to compete in different ways. So how many high level Division I, Division II, even Division III swimmers are out there that stopped after college, but still have that itch to swim. And every gym has a pool now, and it's really easy to get access to a pool. So if we can plant the seed, and this is where I'm kind of leading the conversation right now, is I want to know about how you compete now and where you compete, and just the kind of different outlets that you have or opportunities available to you as a swimmer. So start at the job thing you said.
Sure. So I got a job. I moved on with my life from the sport, and sadly, like a lot of people, that became focus number one. So working out, swimming, anything that involved fitness went out the door.
Mhm.
So I didn't go to the gym. I never saw a pool. I didn't do anything for over 8 years. All I did was, how many buffets can I hit and tackle?
So eating like a swimmer.
Yeah, I mean, I still ate like a swimmer. I just didn't do anything else like a swimmer. I gained 60 some pounds from when I was in college,
Wow.
post college. I literally got to a point where I was completely unhealthy. I had a couple of cancer scares that luckily ended up not being cancerous.
Oh, geez.
But I had gotten married at the time. I was married for the 8-year period, and then in 2013, late 2012, early 20, went through a divorce, and through that, I got put in. I went to see a doctor. I got checked out, and lo and behold, my doctor's like, "You're not very healthy." I was, borderline on having heart disease.
Jeez.
And I was early 30s. I had potential. I was a very strong candidate for potential kidney issues because I was so overweight. I was starting to become diabetic because I was so overweight. So all these things. I mean, I went from peak physical health to lifetime of medication in an 8-year window.
This is shocking to me because if people listening, now don't know you, if you were to look at your, social media activity now and your accomplishments, later in life, holy cow, that's crazy to think that, you went from where you were in college to this point, and, I don't want to spoiler alert, back to the, peak of your, your swimming. So that's really crazy. I would have never known that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shock. I mean, it was a shock to me. I didn't grow up in a family who really none of my relatives, none of my family are athletic. They never did sports. I was kind of the black sheep of the family for wanting to do sports. I had to make a deal with my parents to be able to go to swim in college.
Wow.
That wasn't bred in my life. So when I became unhealthy and I walked out of the doctor's office, I didn't know what to do. And the only thing I knew, because I had gone to med school, I knew if I start that cocktail of medications, I'm going to be on that for most of my life, if not the rest of my life. And I was facing, in the 30s, early 30s, potentially life and death situation.
That's wild.
So, I left, but I refused. I told the doctors I can't take it. I know what this means. And I remember sitting there, I said, I can't take these things. And she's like, well, I cannot prescribe you these things. So I'm going to give you the prescriptions. It's your choice if you take it or not. She said, but I warn you, it's life or death. I mean, if you don't start changing your habits, taking this medication, you could die.
And you're so young. That's crazy. That was being discussed. Wow.
I went home and I really thought about life, and I thought about myself and where I would be. My son was an infant at the time, and I had promised him I would be there for him for as long as I possibly can. So, the only thing I knew in my life was to get healthy, I had to exercise, and the only exercise I could do was swim. So my choice at that point was, get back in the pool, get healthy, or face death. So that's what I did. And it was not pretty at day one. I actually, I still have a video that one of my colleagues took of me and my first time in the pool in 8 years. And it was not pretty. It was quite scary, but that started the process of that journey to make a comeback. And I got in, started getting in once a day, and I barely could do a 500 yards of swimming. It would exhaust me.
Wow. That's crazy.
I was so out of shape. I was, just the cardiovascular system that I had was terrible. My heart rate would skyrocket just doing a couple of 100 yards at a time. So at first it was doing 500, and I swam every single day. I progressed. I added a little bit more every week. And finally, after 3 months, I had lost 20 pounds. And I remember walking back into my doctor's office, and she's like, I need to check you every 3 months. And I walked in there, and she was shocked. All my health metrics had gone back to acceptable ranges.
That's amazing.
And she said, what have you been doing? I said, I got in the pool and I started swimming again.
Not taking your meds. That's what I'm doing.
yeah, exactly. So, but listen to your doctors, everybody.
Yeah, that's right. Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. But, I want to, I'm the type of person who wants to have some kind of control over my own life, right? Like, I don't like to depend on folks. I don't want, if it's with me, myself, like I need to have the sense that I can control something. So, the only thing I could do is get my health back together, with everything else around me and my world is crumbling apart. So that's what I focused on. But, after 3 months of swimming every day, it got boring because, as you are well know, when you're an athlete, especially once you get to college and then beyond, your whole life is about setting goals.
Right.
Your whole life is about, I need a goal to do something. I have to have a purpose. If I don't have a purpose, it means nothing. Like if I don't have a purpose to do something, I'm just not going to do it. It's wasting my time because I'm not going to give 100%. So I got to a point where, going to the pool every day just seemed monotonous. It was boring. And as anybody who swims will tell you, it's going back and forth in a tiny little pool. You stare at the same black line. You don't have music. You don't have any interaction. It was not the funnest thing. So, I thought about stopping. But then, a friend of mine said, hey, why don't you just find some small dinky competition locally that you can do? I'll give you a goal. And I said, well, that's then what pride set in, right? Like I said, well, I used to be this.
Where I was. Yeah,
now,
exactly. Yeah.
Now I can barely move up and down the pool.
Ego starts to get in the way. That's right. Yeah.
Right. So I said, no, that's, I have quote unquote reputation to maintain.
Yeah.
So I said, no, I can't do that. He's like, who cares? This is about you. This is about your life and death. I mean, this is about your own health. Get over yourself.
A good friend.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we all need, right? We need close friends who'll tell you the truth. And I'm thankful that my friends are like, just get over yourself. You're not special. You're not that important. Who cares? I mean, no one's going to care when you're dead. That no one's going to care. Yeah. So I did some research. I found out there were some local swim meets, there are masters meets, and there's local developmental meets. So I signed up for one.
And real quick, can you just define masters, just so for people who don't know?
So masters is, I guess in triathlon world, right? There's age groups.
Right.
So masters is age groups. So it's 18 years old and above, and you're broken into, I guess, 5-year increments, and it starts at 18 and goes onward to 100 plus.
Infinity, yeah.
Yes. I don't know. I'll ever get to the 100 plus, but
never know.
It starts at 18.
Something to shoot for.
Yeah, exactly. But you're slotted into age groups. You're ranked within your age group. But depending on what the competition is, I mean, there's no barriers to who can participate in masters. You have, Olympians, former Olympians, current Olympians. You have current world record holders. You have Ryan Lochte competing before. You have you have all kinds of folks who do masters too, because it's just another avenue that allows folks to still compete in swimming, and largely it's to promote health and wellness, but it has become a lot bigger in the last 10, 15.
So you could have Ryan Lochte, and then you could have, some guy who's just picked up the sport at 45 years old hopping in.
Yeah. And the beauty of it is, everybody, it doesn't matter what level you are, because it's not for most, you try not to think about the end result, right? It's not about winning or losing, because hopefully you're doing it for a passion of keeping fit and keeping healthy, versus, hey, I want to dominate the world or something like that. But but it's a great avenue. It's very competitive. There's as regular swimming, there's world championships, there's Asian championships, there's US championships, Canadian championships, European championships. And you have a lot of very competitive swimmers who are still competing. There are a lot of folks in Masters who will be going to Olympic trials. Well, it was this year, but next year, right? So it's very competitive.
So is a meet is the structure of a Masters swim meet similar to like it is in high school or college, where it's just, the different events and waves of events and stuff like that?
It's the structure is pretty much the same types of events.
Okay.
The only difference is you don't have a prelims finals set up, so you don't have to swim 16s within a 8-hour period, which is good, especially as you get older when you can't recover from a 50-meter sprint. So,
the battery just doesn't get as charged as it used to, right?
No. You'll just be lucky there you can get out of bed some days. But it's great. I mean, it allows you to have goals. Still allows you to have some purpose on what you're doing, and you're just not in the pool every day going, doing laps for no reason sometimes. So, so I, that was my first avenue to kind of get back into swimming, and I did a local meet. And when I did that local, I did a 50. I was nervous as there ever was. I remember standing on the block. And
for those of you listening too, a 50 is 2 laps. It's there and back. Or no, an Olympic pool is just there, right?
Yeah, it depends on short course or long course. But I remember standing up on the block. And the night before, I couldn't even sleep. I was so nervous. And literally, it was in a high school in Atlanta, and I felt like I was, preparing for Olympic trials or something. But I got in, I dove in, I sprinted a 50 freestyle, and I was like, wow, it was actually pretty good. I was very surprised at myself. So that kind of gave me the drive to continue. So
and how old are you at this point?
Mid-30s, I think. Like 34, 35 maybe.
Got it.
And it was it was nice. Like, it gave me a purpose. It gave me a goal. And I started doing some bigger things, bigger competitions. And it really kind of gave me the avenue, the drive to continue to be healthy and continue to train. Then I think about 3 years into it, I really started to feel like I was getting back to my somewhat of a former self in terms of form. So, I started swimming more competitive meets for USA Swimming, where I'm racing teenagers and 20-year-olds.
And we're talking, you're in your late 30s at this point, right?
Yeah. So, it's very awkward to stand on the block and, or it's even more awkward when you show up to the pool and you go to security and they go, "Are you a coach or a parent?" I'm like, "No, I'm neither. I'm a swimmer." And they look at me with this funny look.
Excuse me?
Yeah. So that's always an interesting thing every time I go to one of those competitions.
That's funny.
But I started doing those and did more and more things. And in 2016, I went back home to Taiwan and did trials. Just because I wanted just one last opportunity to do that. And then the last few years, 2 or 3 years, I did more international competitions. So mostly through Masters, I did, World Championships in 2017 in Budapest, World Championships in 2019 in South Korea.
And how do you qualify for those at these Masters events?
Well, yeah, so they do have qualifying times that you have to make in order to compete. There's not a national team per se you have to make, but you do have qualifying times standards you have to make, and it's by age group. So
interesting. So it's not by. So my frame of reference is with triathlon. You do a local race, and then what happens is you go to the national championships. You have to. If you're basically within a certain percentage of the fastest time, you have to be within that, and you have to you have to win a local race in your age group, and then be within a certain percentage, and then you go to the national championship, and then they'll take the top 10. So it's
Yeah.
it's ranked. So
Yeah.
with swimming, is it like there's a qualifying time, but is there like if someone does it faster or that doesn't matter?
No, so there's no national team designation for. I mean, you're designated by the club you're representing and what
Okay,
country that represents, but you don't necessarily have a national team selection.
got it.
But you go to Worlds and you go to more kind of like European championships or Asian championships or what are Pan American championships. You have people from a lot of different countries, and you'll have, I would say, probably 10-15% of those are former national team members, Olympians.
That's so cool.
So it's very the top tier of I would say master swimming across the world is very fast. And
So is it kind of like the Boston Marathon where, like for me, I just turned 34. So there's the 30 to 35 age group and there's the Boston qualifying time. And I'm just shooting to get to that Boston. So is that kind of similar to how it works?
Yeah. So you're grouped by you qualify by age groups and then you compete within your age group.
Got it.
Right. So and then smaller non-international or national meets, your competition, even though you place by age group, you're actually racing everybody.
Okay.
There is no age group designation when you're actually racing them. It's placing, do they break you out in age group? So
it's basically how you it's how they select the people that are able to go to the championships, and then once you're there, it's like just a it's by time then.
Well, no. So you're like a world championships, right? You have different age groups, and you compete within that age group. So you're not racing anybody older or younger than your age group. But smaller meets around the U.S. Specifically, you're racing not by age group. You're racing based on time, right? You're seeded based on time. So you could be racing a 20-year-old, or you can be racing a 50-year-old at the same time. It's all just based on time. So
say I'm a former swimmer. I'm sitting here listening to this podcast, and I say, I want to get into this. I want to see what I can do. They hear your story, and it's like, oh my God, this guy was basically, having to make the decision to get on pills to save his life, and he decided to get in the pool and, was struggling to do a 50. If I'm that person and I want to get into it, is there a central database where I can look and see where races are in my area?
Yeah.
And what would that be?
Yeah. So you go to, if you're in the U.S., you go to the usms.org. That's the U.S. Masters Swimming website. They will have all the resources you can possibly have. Find a local club that's near you if you want to join a team to swim with. You can always race as an unattached swimmer, so you're not affiliated with a club. You're just racing for yourself. And they also have just a calendar of events coming up.
So chances are, if you live somewhere in the U.S., you're going to have the ability to go to some meets, within relatively close distance to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are certain states that have a lot more competitions than others. Florida, Georgia, Texas, California. I think they have competitions all the time. Pre-COVID. But North Carolina is probably another one. There's a lot of competitions across the United States. So,
that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So now that we get the background, what I thought was interesting too, I forgot to mention earlier. It's funny that you had to make the decision in high school or you didn't have to make the decision. I'm sorry, where you're like with basketball, I'm just kind of gonna leave that. I grew up. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and up there, they're the same season, so you wouldn't even be able to do them at the same time. So once you get to high school. Or middle school, actually, you have to decide, I'm either going to be a swimmer or a basketball player. So I was, if you grew up in a different state, who would have thought, you may have picked basketball and then never even gotten into swimming, right?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I could be Jeremy Lin, right? No.
Or you could be Jeremy Lin, yeah. So I was going to ask you, when you say home is Taiwan, so is that where you were born and grew up?
That was where I was born. Yep.
Awesome.
I was born in Taiwan. I moved to the States when I was 5. So,
Okay, gotcha. So the whole
yeah.
drowning in a pool incident, that was here in the States.
Yep.
Gotcha,
Yep.
gotcha. Okay. And do you still have family over in Taiwan?
I do. All of my relatives on my dad's side of the family still live in Taiwan.
Cool. Did you make it over there a lot?
I think the last time was 2016.
Wow.
I haven't been back since. I was hoping to go back this year, but no. But
Yeah, I don't think that'll
obviously,
happen.
a lot of things happened that prevented me from doing that. So it's my family's out there. I don't know. It's a little early for them. I don't know if they're watching. So if they are, hi. But they're all out there, and it's my family, the country. It's a small island. That was founded in 1949, and it's my home. And
That's cool.
As much as I'm American, I'm also Chinese/Taiwanese. So,
That's very cool. That's cool.
So.
Yeah. Well, so one of the other things I wanted to ask you about, one of them was, as far as once, let's look at your career in kind of two divisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
You growing up in high school and college, and you're doing all the things that you accomplished in the 2 Olympics. Incredible. Let's look at after, so we heard about what happened with you is, you hit your late 20s, early 30s, and, started to get back into it. So if you could, I think this is just a kind of a cool example of what you're able to accomplish as you get older, but you're still an athlete. What are some of the things that you've accomplished, Pat, when you got into swimming for like the second time, basically?
Yeah. So, one, I lost 60 pounds. So that was probably
that's the biggest win right there.
Yeah. So that'll be my top achievement. This summer at World Championships in South Korea, I won 2 golds and 5 total medals.
That's ridiculous. Is that the picture you sent me?
Yes.
Where you're holding the medals? Yeah. That's incredible.
So that was this past summer. Our relay team was ranked first in the world. Our mixed relay team. I had some phenomenal teammates who are like my family, and the year before in 2018 was Asian Championships, and I had won 3 golds, 2 silvers, and 2 bronze. I've been, ranked top 10 in the world for my events 16 times. I'm, 18 number 1 rankings in the United States for masters.
That's incredible.
9-time All-American. I'm trying to think what else. But,
that's it? What a loser. Well, let me ask you this then.
It's been, I got 2. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Keep going. This is awesome.
I 2 YMCA national records. I had 1 U.S. Masters record. Way long ago, I had a World Masters record. So yeah, that's.
So to be clear, this isn't your job. You're not a professional, you're not a full-time,
no.
You know what I mean? So
no, if my colleagues are listening to this right now, though, they would argue that this may be my job. But no.
So what do you do? What do you do for a living?
So I work for Cox Enterprises. We're it's a company that has 3 businesses. It's communications, automotive, and formerly media. We're a $20 billion plus company, mostly domestic. It's family owned, privately held. I'm based in Atlanta, and I am in the corporate development M&A investments group. And Cox Enterprises.
What's a typical, where is it like your standard, kind of like your 9 to 5, Monday through Friday kind of gig, or how?
Yeah,
is it more than that?
Mostly, it's in M&A and investments, it's largely deal driven. So
Okay.
when you're in a deal, hours can get crazy.
Right. Whatever you got to do to get
know,
it done, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and I think, and where we might be headed towards in this conversation is, I'm very thankful and I'm very blessed that my job, my bosses, my colleagues are like a family. My team that I'm with, we're only about 18, 20 people. We used to be only like 5 when I first started, but we're like a family, and there's a lot of flexibility. They support me and what I do outside of work, not only just with swimming, but with my son. So I get flexibility. There's a lot of work flexibility as well. It's about just getting work done, right? It doesn't matter when or how, as long as you're doing your job and you get it done. That's all they care.
That's great.
When I need to go race like world championships, I took 3 weeks off, and they were like, "Oh, no worries, go ahead."
That's amazing. What a setup, man. You're doing it.
Yeah. So, but the key is having an environment and a support system to really allow you to do that. And thankfully, and I'm blessed and grateful that I have that. And that's been what has given me the opportunity and success to do what I've done.
So what's a typical training week look like for you? Are you a morning person, or do you do it after work? And obviously with a kid, you got to make sure that you're there for him. And
right.
Do you have a structured plan that you follow, or so kind of just generally speaking, if you want to go over your training plan, I think a lot of people want to know that.
So it's morphed. I think number one, for all athletes are kind of later stages in life, you have to be flexible and be adaptable with your training. Work and family always has to come first. So my normal routine that I plan out that doesn't always follow suit is I train before work in the mornings. I usually swim an hour to an hour and a half. And then in the evenings after work, or sometimes I'll, if I have time on a lunch break, I'll work out. But, then I do another hour and a half afterwards.
That's my phone. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Rookie move there. Rookie move. We turn it down.
Your Uber Eats is arriving, right?
I don't have Uber Eats, buddy. Come on now.
I'm cutting into your dinner time.
No.
So I do train twice a day because I can't book out 2-3 hours to train at one block. It's just there's no way to do that. So I have to be flexible. So I try to train. I try to get in twice a day of workouts. I'll try to get in swimming workouts anywhere between 7 to 9 sessions a week.
Okay.
And then I'll do 3 weight sessions during the week. And if I don't have my son during the week, I may throw in another 1 or 2 of dry land work. So that's generally my training routine. But that doesn't always work out that way. So a lot of times if work is busy or I have my son, I have to cut the training down. Sometimes I'll not do a day or 2 on a weekday and do it all on the weekend. Or sometimes I skip a workout and do, add another hour or 2 tacked onto a Saturday.
Now, do you have a coach?
I sometimes do. I used to, not so much anymore. I have to coach myself now. But I do, for a while I swam with a bunch of, for a good 4 or 5 years, I swam with a group at the club by my house. And they've become my family as well. A really good group of people that there's a mix. We used to have teenagers to 40, 50-year-olds and everybody in between. So it was a good mix. We had swimmers, former swimmers, current swimmers, elite triathletes, age group triathletes. So it was a good smorgasbord of people.
That's great.
But it was fun. I mean, it was always a highlight of my day for most parts.
I always think when you're in groups like that, it's just so. I think a lot of people miss out on that. A lot of people aren't a part of what I'm learning about the endurance, world as I start to really dive into it is everyone's so supportive, and
Yeah.
positive, and it doesn't matter how good you are. You could be the best one there or the worst one there. You're there, and that's really what matters. And it's
Yeah,
fun to be a part of
absolutely.
that supportive group. And when you see people start to hit PRs or do stuff they've never done before, even if you're the best one there, it's going to motivate you to keep going and doing your best because you're seeing how much it means to, certain people to hit PRs and stuff like that.
Yeah, one thing I would say through this whole pandemic, more and more you realize how, at least what I like to call it, is a swim family.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just locally; it's all around the United States, all around the world. We're all connected, either Facebook, social media,
Right.
text messages, WhatsApp, whatever it means. But it's literally a family.
Mm-hmm.
And we check on each other. We help each other with advice, workouts, pointers, or just be there for support. And
Mm-hmm.
that's been incredible. I mean, we offer each other advice. We listen to each other. Not just about swimming or exercise, but just life in general. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been in this time of isolation, it's meant a lot to me, and
Yeah.
it's given me an avenue to not feel isolated. And isolation can be very dangerous.
Yeah.
It leads to depression, leads to potential suicide, and we've seen that a lot in the last few months.
And that's the double-edged sword of social media is, that it depends on how you use it. You can use it as that, way of finding community and finding people that are supportive, encouraging, but you could also sit on there and just, read the bad news and see all the bad that's going on in the world and kind of paint a picture that way too. So you're right.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're, kind of diving in that world, it can have definitely some negative consequences.
Yeah. It's amazing how people, and I'm pretty sure the tri community is the same, is that everybody's so helpful. They want to be there to help you. It's not about them. It's very selfless, which I don't want to stereotype the world, but these days, we do tend to, it's human nature. We tend to think about ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, we're all selfish in some degree, but it's amazing how there are so many selfless people that I've encountered in the swimming community and the tri community who are there to help. Like all they care about is your well-being more than theirs. And that to me has given me hope for humanity. I mean, in these days, like with COVID and what has gone on in our nation and the world in general, it gives me hope, right? I mean, it gives me hope that the world isn't falling apart. And
I mean, my guest tomorrow, his name's Philip Young, and he is the duathlon age group national champion. And he's a friend of mine because at my first age group national championship for triathlon, I had only been doing the sport for like 3 or 4 months, and he was next to me, and I was picking his brain because I'm like, listen, man, I don't know what the hell's going on. He's like, how are you here? And the next year, we kind of like exchanged numbers. He's like, hey, man, if you ever got any questions, hit me up. And he lives in Memphis, Tennessee. And he's like, if you ever have any questions or anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. Maybe, friend him on Facebook, whatever. Well, the next year, just by happenstance, me and him are next to each other again. And we tried to figure it out because his last name's Young, mine's Goldsmith, not close. We're like, I'm like, when did you sign up? And he was on the ball. He signed up like as soon as he could, as soon as he qualified. It was last minute, so that wasn't it. So it was crazy that we were next to each other again. But then that year, we both qualified for the World Championships, and then we went to Worlds together, and the rest is history. And now we're really good friends. But that's the point is. This guy could have told me to screw off, when I'm asking him questions the first day. But instead, he bent over backwards and saw that I was new to the sport and made sure that if I ever had questions, I could use him as a resource. And I think that goes exactly what you're saying. Now I got a friend for life that I get to travel around the world with at these world championships. So that's exactly what you're talking about.
No, it's great. I mean, I've met some of my best friends through the sport. I mean, back in the days to now. I mean, they're lifelong friends and friends that I highly value and trust. And they not only lift me up when I'm down, but if I'm getting too full of myself, they're more than happy to knock me over the head a few times. And, but that's the beauty of it. And
right.
I love the community. I love the passion that people in the swim community and masters, but also just swimming in general. It's like a little family, and that's hard to find.
So this year, did you, because of all this, obviously everything's been canceled all over the place. Right. Do you have, because like you said earlier, it's the same thing with me. It sucks not having something to train for. There's no, I left my race schedule up on my fridge because I'm one of these, I do a lot of cheesy stuff, so I put my race schedule on my fridge and every day I'd look at it and be like, okay, this is coming up. And I knew they're all canceled, but I just couldn't come to grips with it. You know what I mean? And it was like a killer moment to take that off the fridge and throw it out. And so I guess during these times, I mean, do you know when your next event's going to be?
I don't. And I'm actually very happy about that. And I'll tell you why. And I actually had this conversation the other night with a close family friend of mine. And, for the last 7 years of my life, it's all about racing, right? It's all about competitions. So it's all geared to 1 month after the next. I got to get ready. I got to get prepared to this race and that race. Well, that's all great. That gives you goals and gives you opportunity to push yourself. But I've realized with COVID, the first thing I realized was there's a lot of things that bad habits, technique issues, lack of strength sometimes, that all the weaknesses I had start to build up. So for the first time in 7 years of getting back into swimming, I'm not injured. I don't have competitions. This is the first time I can focus on making myself better. And I think that's the whole point. And I ended up embracing it. And I said, okay, I need to get stronger. I need to fix certain things of my stroke that have made me less efficient. And I literally and analyzed my technique down constantly so that, I like to joke, I'm trying to go slower to get faster.
Yeah.
And because this is the only time I have. I don't, next year, hopefully we'll all get back to racing. But then we'll be in that gear of, I got to compete. I got to get faster.
Right.
And you don't have time to focus on your weaknesses. You're just going to pile upon all the errors you're making.
Taking that hard intrinsic look at yourself like that is sometimes, I mean, it's painful. It's, for me, I mean, without, this quarantine and everything being canceled, I mean, I wouldn't have even considered getting on Zwift or, trying this out or, starting a podcast show and, trying to inspire other athletes to get to high levels like you are. So, but the same thing too is I also, not the greatest habits in the world in terms of like rest and stretching and all that kind of stuff, and I think you're exactly right. I've had to also take a real kind of cyclical look at what I'm doing on a daily basis. And I'm like, you got to incorporate a lot more, real just analyzation of yourself and, kind of really take a deep, hard look at yourself and see how you can get, because it's always about the long term,
Right. Absolutely. I'm a firm believer, and I challenge everybody out there to do it, is embrace this time. Yeah. Because you're not burdened by anything else outside of what you have to do every day. And you don't have competitions to worry about. That you're home most of the time. You can work out, you can train, focus on the little things, build yourself, make yourself better 1% every day. Because, as we get older, and I learned this a couple years ago, I went out to Arizona, and you being a football player, I think you know this place well. Exos performance centers. Right? Yeah, they do a lot. Yep. They do the NFL draft potential players and getting ready for combines. Well, I went out there oh man, I think it was early spring of 2019, maybe. So yeah, about a year and a half ago. Spent a week out there, and I got to listen, hear, and work and train, and under what under the Exos trainers, and understand just not just physical training, the strength training, the functional training, but also stuff like mindset and rest and nutrition. That all, as we get older, makes it more and more important to maintain elite athletic performance.
There's so many pieces to the puzzle. There's so many pieces to the puzzle.
Absolutely. And things I never thought about. Like I never thought about what I ate. I ate like crap. Pizza, burgers.
I was going to say fueled by pizza and hamburgers. That's how I grew up. That's for sure.
Yeah. Like I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to burn off all these calories. I don't care what I eat.
Right.
Sleep. I mean, I don't sleep the best, and so I don't recover very well. So the first time I went out there, it was a shock. Like they taught me about mindset. They taught me about nutrition. They made a meal plan for me. I was like, what meal plan? I can't just scarf food down. What I should eat, when I should eat. And that made a huge difference. It allowed me to recover. It allowed me to feel good every day. Allow me to perform my best in training, and allow me to perform my best in competitions. I swam faster last year than I had at almost any point in the last 7 years.
That's insane. That is crazy.
And a couple of events I swam faster than I did back when I was competing in college.
That's wild.
So, and I've never felt better physically.
You're just a fine wine. You're just getting better with age, man. That's all there is to it.
I don't know. When I wake up in the mornings, it doesn't feel that way sometimes. The first 15 minutes getting out of bed is a struggle, I can tell you.
When you wake up, you're the $2 Chuck from Trader Joe's.
Yeah, there are times when I literally roll off the bed and have to do a push-up to get myself out because I can't stand. But it's those things I've learned have been hugely important to being able to maintain good athletic elite performance. Mm-hmm. And it's been huge for me, and it's a mindset. It's everything that's holistically when you think about being an athlete. Mm-hmm. Right now we have an opportunity, at least for me, I have through the rest of the year, but sitting at home at least.
Yeah, me too.
Where I can break everything down, not just to your point, not just what I do in the sport, but how I eat, how I sleep, mm-hmm. how I think. Every aspect to gear myself to be better, not just in the pool, but in life. Right. So I challenge folks. This is a great opportunity to embrace something that may be negative around us, but could be a positive for each individual.
Well, I say that too. I mean, if you come out of this, time period without having developed a new skill or, learning something new or, trying something out that you've never tried in the past, it's not your, lack of time, because people always point to, well, if I had the time, I'd do this. If I had the time, I'd do that. You have the time now. So after this is all over, if you haven't developed any new skills or, like I said, any of that stuff, I mean, I don't think time's really the issue. You know what I mean? So what you're saying, I think, is exactly, nail on the head. And that's basically why I wanted to, you to share your story. And I didn't even know, for those that are listening, we've had minimal conversations. We've never actually spoken to each other. It was, you emailed me. I sent you the video and you emailed when you helped my swim. So I had no idea about this whole roller coaster that you were on. I mean, you were an elite Olympic athlete to, in your early 30s, 60 pounds, above to where you were, to back to, you're just one of the best swimmers that, is competing. It's incredible. So if I were to ask you, someone's listening to this and they're like, I want to get into this. What would your advice be for them to get started? Where would they start?
Yeah, I do things. I think I said earlier, two things. I'd say, know what your purpose is. Find that why. Why are you wanted to do this? And find your passion for it. If you don't have either, you're going to quit, right? The way to be successful in anything you do is those two in combination. And I found my why. That gave me my purpose. That gave me my passion back. And and the other thing is, don't fear. We're going to fail. We all feel fear failure. Don't. Failure is going to come. We failed many times in our lives, and we're still here. Mm-hmm. So take that plunge, take that risk. Don't let your ego or your pride get in the way. If you lose, you win. It doesn't matter. It's not the end result. The end result will come. When I started 7 years ago, I didn't care if I just didn't want to make a fool of myself. I was more worried my goggles would fall off or my speedo would come off if I dove in. I had no expectations, but I knew what my why was. I had to get healthy, or I may not be alive to see my son get older. And that's what drove me. What has happened since has been because I found my passion through it. And it's allowed me the opportunity to experience new things. I mean, I've gotten to travel to Europe and Asia. I mean, Japan, South Korea, Budapest. I mean, I've gone a lot of places. I've met a lot of amazing people who are very close to me now.
And imagine 33-year-old you.
Yeah.
And you talking to that kid now. You'd be like, it would have been overwhelming to think about the work that you'd have to put in, but the longest journey begins with the first step, right? I mean,
7 years ago, I was borderline suicidal, borderline about to die. I was in a deep depression of all the things bad had happened in my life. And before that, everybody will look at me and go, man, you had it all. But in reality, inside, I had nothing. And
that's pretty deep.
That change in my life, that catastrophic event changed my life to where it transformed me to have a purpose and a passion that I never thought I'd have again. Mm-hmm. And that really gave me the opportunity to be where I am today. I mean, it permeated through my whole life, and not just my swimming, but my relationships with people, with my being a better father to my son, being a better son to my own parents. It really is all encompassing. And I think, if I did not take that step and take that leap of faith to say, I'm going to get back in because I have to, none of it would happen. And, but then I stuck with it. I think the part of it is you can take the leap, right? And if you don't have a purpose, you don't have a passion, you won't stick to it, right? It's very easy to have that minimal gain and go, oh, okay, I lost that first 20 pounds. I don't need to worry about the other 40. Right. And quit. And then you go back, then you regress. And I think that's the tough part of life is we may want to get up, but then we allow ourselves, we stop wanting to get better. Mm-hmm. And then we fall back down. And
it's being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about. Yeah.
That's perfect. And so, it doesn't matter what sport it is. It doesn't matter what you're wanting to do. At this age, your chances are you're not going to set personal records all the time, if ever. But that's okay. You can't make that your life or death goal, right? Mm-hmm. It's not human nature. A friend of mine told me, for most people, you start slowing down a fraction of a percent every year, starting at the age 35, because your muscle fibers start to deteriorate. Okay. You can be stronger. You can lift more now than you could ever have in your life, but your muscle fibers and reaction time and the ability to turn strength into power, which is what you need in sports, starts to deteriorate. So it's not about ability to get faster. It's about maintaining, right? It's about not slowing down. So you do everything you can to be the same. And that's the key.
I like that. That's an interesting way to look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. And because a lot of people get frustrated. Why am I not getting better? I set a PR 2 years ago. Why can I not do the same? I run more. I lift more. A lot of times you have to change things up. You have to shock your system a little bit to get better. But it's about maintaining. And as you get older, LeBron James is not going to jump and play, be at the athletic level he was when he first entered the league.
Right.
But he's smarter. He has better reactions. He's taking care of his body.
It's a different approach.
He's playing just as well as he did when he was in his physical prime. So, and that's mental, and that's preparing yourself to maintain that, a level of performance. And for those of you who are curious, there's a great book called Game On that I read.
I'm gonna write that down.
And I can't remember who the author is off the top of my head. It's a long name, but the book is called Game On, and it literally, the author chronicles and spends a lot of time with the trainers and athletes like Tom Brady, Yammer Yager, those who has sustained success in their careers well into past their prime.
Yager is ridiculous. He played forever.
And what I got out of it, what I got out of it is they're willing to adapt. They're willing to be flexible, change their routines, but also understand that they have to do things differently as they get older and embrace other things. It's not about working harder, it's working smarter. And like, I think the Yammer Yager, he had this weird thing of, hey, I just can't function in the morning. I'm so used to only functioning at night at my peak performance. So he stopped working out in the mornings. When everybody else would do workouts in the morning for his team, he stopped. He's like, I'm going to work out at night.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Himself.
Wow.
Yeah. They found different techniques to, training to improve or to maintain. And, it's a very interesting book. It really changed the way I thought about performance.
I'm going to check that out. I'm a big audiobook guy. I'm a big audiobook guy.
I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it to everybody out there. So you'll hear, it's a unique perspective, and it really changed the way I thought about things. It kind of solidified everything I thought about. I think I read this in 2018. And then when I went to Exos for the week, it really then further said, this is the way to do it.
That's crazy.
But I mean, it's a great book, and it really, really helps reframe. And for swimmers out there and, distance athletes back in the days, we were taught to train as much as possible. It was about grinding out the yardage. We would do a ridiculous amount of workouts, and it was the harder you work, the better. Well, that's not the case.
Yeah.
I mean, it just it leads to burnout, leads to injuries. And when you're older, the way to sustain maximum performance is not to get hurt. When you get hurt, you're out for a long period of time, and you're not going to ever recover back to 100%. It's just not possible, especially when you're old. So you need to make sure you train smartly so you avoid injury and maximize the opportunities you have to train. Because we have jobs, we have families, we have lives outside of being an athlete.
It's that balance. It's that balance that you have to strike.
Yeah, and you have to be able to then be the most efficient you can be when you're training. So I was told it's quality over quantity. And it was the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around, because that's not what I'm used to.
Right.
I was drilled in, you've got to work out as much as possible. That's not. You can get better results with better quality workouts in a shorter period of time than you can with quantity of workouts.
See, and I'm like I told you, I'm 34, and I grew up that, being coached, that mentality too. Like football two-a-days. If you're not puking, you're not trying. That kind of stuff. And sometimes it's better to go in with a blank slate. If they're teaching kids that now, or if you're an athlete who's never, competed and wants to get into swimming or something like that. Sometimes it's better to have a clean slate rather than like me or you have that mindset and have to switch it. Do you know what I mean? It's because for me, it's hard to not overtrain. When I'm the kind of person who if I see someone like on Zwift, or I see someone on Instagram, I just did a 10-mile run today. My mind immediately goes, oh, no, I gotta do that. And it's no. Stick to your plan. Be smart about it. And I'm just, it's that competitive streak in me. I always feel like I got to keep going.
It's a hard mindset. It was after reading that book and then spending time at Exos, and I was like, okay, I get it. And you have to build in recovery days. You have to allow yourself to take a day off when you just can't. Like, you get to a point where your body just can't push yourself. You got to know when to turn off the switch.
When you do that extra kick at the end, or you're really trying to dig deep, and that just nothing happens. That's a terrible feeling.
Yeah, I'll give you a great example. Last summer, I was pushing myself hard. I had trained 12 straight months for World Championships, and I was doing really great times in March, April, May, and beginning of June, and all of a sudden the bottom fell out. I could barely function. Like, my times just went down the tubes. I couldn't recover. Every day going to workout was painful. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. And I called.
That's tough.
I called, the folks at X. I was like, "What's going on? I was doing so well. Your program's supposed to be, making me great." And they said, "Recovery." That's all they said. And I said, "Well, what does that mean?" He's like, how do you feel? What's your heart rate? Resting heart rate. How are you managing stress? I'm like, "What are you talking about? Stress? I'm stressed all the time." And they're like, "Exactly. You gotta allow yourself to recover." So, I didn't listen. For a few more weeks, I went out to a competition at Texas A&M, and I swam horribly. And that was my last tune-up before going to South Korea. And I still had another month before I left. And I was like, I don't know, this is going to be bad.
Yeah, really that's a tough pill to swallow for sure.
Yeah. And I said, well, you know what? I feel terrible physically. I'm just going to, normally we call it taper, right? Like, normally I taper 2 weeks. I was like, you know what? I have a month. I'm going to taper a month, 28 days. I've never done that in my whole life.
That's hard, especially leading up to a big event like that.
Yeah. And I said, you know what? I'm going to taper a month. And I just got to rest and, wean myself, let my body recover. And I felt terrible. All 28 days, I felt horrible. And then I get to South Korea, and I still feel horrible. And then I trained out there for 10 days, and I just felt like this is going to be a horrific performance. It might be the worst swims of my life. First event, I get in there, and I swam the best I've swam in I don't know, 6 years.
That's ridiculous.
And every swam except for one, it was, the best times I've done since I've come back. And I took a risk because I had no idea how I performed. But I just remember that they said recover. Your body needs, as you get older, especially, it's going to be harder and harder to recover. So you got to listen to yourself. Right? Be okay to take that day off, or 2 days, maybe a week sometimes. Who knows?
Right.
But listen, because grinding through practices for a long period of time, it's going to wear on you.
Well, no one knows your body worse, or no one knows your body better than you. And when you're not yourself, and that over fatigue, that sucks. That feeling is just. Yeah, like lethargy. And like you said, you do start to get restless too. You don't sleep as well. And I've experienced that too. And recovery is definitely something I'm not the best at.
I'm right there with you. I suck at it.
It's that competitive streak. It is. It's just you always want to get better. You equate, putting your pedal to the metal and just going in overdrive to more work equals better. And that's just not. It's been proven that's not the case, but
no,
it's hard to get out of that mindset, right?
Yeah, I think that's a lesson I've learned the hard way. Where I've hurt myself, I've injured myself. Where, we've got to listen to ourselves, and as we get older, we have to be more conscious of that. We're not in our teens anymore. We can't go work out for 6 hours and then go, hang out and have fun for another 2, and then go right back and do another 6 hours.
With the pizza milkshake hamburger diet.
No matter how much I want to do that.
Right.
So, I think being smart, working smart, that's the key. I mean, that's the key to success and key to continuing to do what you want to do. Because, the hardest part would be you're injured, and you got to sit out a whole year and can't do something that you love. And it's happened to me. I don't want that for anybody. So So just be smart about things.
Well, I will tell you what. We are coming up on an hour and a half here, so I don't want to take all of it. Right? That flew by. That was incredible.
Yeah.
But you are one hell of an inspiration. You truly are. And, I can't thank you enough for coming on here. I'm going to put that usms.org. Is that what you said it is? The
Yep.
website for the meets. I'm going to throw that in the show notes, in the comments on YouTube in the description. So if you're out there and you're thinking about taking the plunge literally into this sport and you wanted to start to compete at different meets, Nei-Kuan, do you have anything you want to plug, like your Instagram handle or anything like that? Because,
No,
like I said, you inspired me, man. I see you grinding, and your kid's cute, so that's always nice.
he's a future gamer. He wants to follow your footsteps, man.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, he's been like, Dad, I want to set up a YouTube so I can stream all my video games. I was like, oh my God, not you're 8.
Yeah, not yet.
No,
just watch.
No, I mean, you can follow me at NKC Swim, and I'm more than happy to, I try to, when I can, post workout ideas and tips on swimming and more swim specific strength training stuff. And but I think the only thing I would say to everybody is enjoy it, right? I mean, that's we're here for a limited time on earth. Enjoy what you're doing, have fun with it, find that passion, and go for it, and take that leap of faith, because it can take you places you never experienced and never thought of. So
I love, and that's same thing. For me, 4 years ago, being a football player, and then to think that it's taken me and my fiance around the world, and I was able to propose to her in Switzerland last year. I mean, if you were to tell me 4 years ago that would have been me, I'd have been like, okay, no. But you're right. You're exactly right. And
you're a lucky man, my friend. Lucky man.
So, well, thank you.
I'm sure your fiance is like, what did I do? What did I do?
No. I ask that all the time. But no, seriously, you are a really big inspiration, and thanks for being my first guest on this show. And I guess like I said, fun. If you're thinking about getting into the sport, this is the guy to follow, and it's just really incredible what you do, and keep on doing it. And looking forward to many more medals and plaques that you're going to be able to put behind you.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you having me on. And I as much as you enjoy following me, I enjoy following you. So,
well, I appreciate that.
You've played football. Football to triathlon is not the easiest transition. So,
Definitely not. Definitely not.
It's you're as much of an inspiration as anybody else. So I thank you.
Well, thanks. So goes back to that community thing. We're just trying to inspire everybody, right?
Yep, absolutely. So everybody, just I would say one last thing is, help each other.
Yeah.
Because that is we're both here, right? Because people helped us. And
the world could always use a little bit more love, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's how we make this place a little bit better for the next generation.
That's it. All right, Nei-Kuan. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And thanks for listening. And we'll see you on episode 3.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Brian.
All right. You got it. Thank you.
All right, man.
Hey there. Welcome to history. How's that for an opening, huh? No, this is our first episode we've ever done here. So this is a big deal, especially for me, because I have no experience with anything similar to this. So this is going to be a first time thing for us here. So hopefully this is the first of many, many, many more to come. But the reason I wanted to do this episode is kind of like, let's call it an intermezzo. How about that for a classy word here? Basically, you saw the first video that I introduced myself as, just kind of a high level overview of what this podcast is going to be all about. But in this episode, I wanted to kind of get into the reasoning behind it, and really just have you understand where I'm coming from, and maybe give you a little bit of a deeper dive into it. So on today's podcast, I'm going to be interviewing myself. um, but no, the so like I said, in the in the first introduction, there is I want this to be something that athletes, weekend warriors, amateur, aspiring athletes that enjoy competing or enjoyed competing in the past, or are looking to kind of get into a new sport or anything like that. My goal is to provide that platform for them, um, to get into that, to be the conduit for that, because that's really my story. That's my personal story, and this is something that's near and dear to my heart, and it's something that I really want to expose other people to. And um, so first of all, you may be like, why does this guy have the same shirt on that he had on in the introduction? Why is he wearing like a dressy shirt when he's obviously in some like corner of a room somewhere? Well, I'll tell you why. Because you only have one time for a first impression, and if you miss the intro and you're landing on this one, I'm making that first impression again. But most of the time, I'm probably going to have on a t-shirt, a backwards hat. So in the future, I can go ahead and make fun of myself. Um, but my story. So, for me, I have an athletic background. I did not say I was a very good athlete, but I have an athletic background. So, my earliest memories are playing youth soccer. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I remember growing up playing soccer, t-ball. These are some of my earliest memories that I have. And once I started to get to middle school, that's when things start to get a little bit more serious, and you start to see, basically everyone as a kid, at least my age, played some kind of sport growing up. They start to see it get a little bit more competitive. Kids start to fall off, and yada yada. Well, once you get to high school, that's legit, man. You're getting people that are trying to get scholarships. They're competing for schools to give them money to continue that. They're playing for their athletic lives. If you're a big fan of the sport that you're competing in, you may never have a shot to play that sport again. So I think my story is not unlike anyone else's in the fact that I played sports my whole childhood up to high school, and then my story fortunately was able to continue, but a lot of people or athletes that age don't have that ability to continue on with their athletics. So for me, I've been all over the place. I've had a pretty wild go at it. But my freshman year of high school or of college, I'm sorry. And keep in mind, these are just like off the cuff. There's nothing. I'm not reading anything. I want this to be as candid and as just as intimate as possible in an appropriate way. Let's not get crazy. Um, so what I'm doing is like with the people that I'm going to be interviewing on this podcast, aside from some of my friends that I've met through the sports that I do, we'll get to in a second. Um, Aside from some of the friends that I've gathered, I try to know as little as I can about these people that I'm going to be speaking with, because I want it to be candid conversations. I want to learn along with you. I think that's a pretty cool concept. So I don't want to be like prepping people in terms of like interview questions so they come like bam 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 bam. I want it to be just organic and just having a conversation. Some of these we may start talking about their sport, and we may tail off into different conversations, and I think that's cool too, because you get to learn about these athletes as people, and you may even share common interests and be like, okay, I would have never considered this sport because this girl or this guy likes X, Y, and Z. Maybe I want to get into that sport. So these are really just non-formal, off the cuff, just talking. And you'll realize too, as you start to hear me talk, I realize that I don't really have the grasp on the English language that I thought I did. I'll look for a phrase or a word or a sentence, and it's just it's gone. It's not in there. So feel free to laugh with me, laugh at me. I don't care. To me, if I'm making you laugh, that's good. So to kind of get back to my story, I wasn't any kind of like a standout athlete in high school. I was always pretty good. I played baseball, I played football, and I swam. I played swimming. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. But I was a swimmer, and that remember that's going to come back. But football was my passion. I loved it. I was obsessed with it. I loved the X and the O's. I loved the chess match about it. I really loved everything there was about football. It's like it's chess with just strength and brute force. So that's what it was amazing. I loved it. And unfortunately, I was born in a short Italian's body. So, looking like Mario and trying to play football was not the best. But I remember growing up, Wayne Corbett was my biggest hero. That was about the time that I was playing high school football. He was lighting up the league, or at least, he was a short receiver that I, looked up to. So I remember him being a real, and that was tough for me because, like I told you, I'm from Buffalo and he was a New York Jet. So that was not easy to have him as a role model. I was always hoping he'd get traded to the Bills. Obviously, never happened, but whatever. So, anyways, at the end of my football career, I was really upset in high school because I didn't think I'd ever have a shot to play football again. So they had a draft, or they had a combine. I'm sorry. Yeah, I entered the NFL draft right out of high school. I was that good. They had a combine, and I remember going to that combine, and it was in the middle of our senior year, I believe. It was either, I forgot exactly when it was, but that's neither here nor there. But I do remember, and this is how old I am, bringing VHS tapes to that combine. And I remember knowing I wasn't going on to play college football. But I always in the back of my mind, I've always had that, but what if? But what if? What if I go hard? So I remember after the combine, I came back to grab the tapes that I brought, and there weren't any left. So that was really the first seed of maybe I can do this that really moved me forward. So that really inspired me. And I was like, well, that was my junior year now that I'm thinking about it. So I was just like, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can milk another couple years of football, as we move forward. So I remember in my senior year of high school, giving everything that I had into it. And, I had some touchdowns, I had some yards. I don't even remember. I was up there in receiving, but it wasn't like we were some Top Gun, top flight Florida offense, but I did well. I did well. And I remember I got accepted to Chapman University in Orange, California. And on my school visit, I was in talks with the coach about trying out and, trying to make the team. And great guy. Unfortunately, I forgot his name because it was a while ago, but he off the top of my head, but started with a V, I think. That helps, right? Chapman University, Coach V. I mean, obviously you know him. But I remember, speaking with him, and it went really well. It went really well, and he liked my attitude because I was like, I was going to be Rudy. Let's face it. I knew what it was going to be. So, showed up in California for training camp and grinded and really put everything I had into it and made the team. And, I actually got into a couple games, and that was pretty crazy. I remember doing those one-on-ones, when the entire team is watching you. If you've never played football before, it is the most intimidating thing in the entire damn world. When a cornerback lines up on you as a receiver, and you and the quarterback know what route you're going to run, and if that corner gets a hold of you and throws you out of bounds, and when you line up, it's always funny to be like, oh, let's do the little guy's up, let's put the big guy on him, or the super senior, or whatever. So yeah, I got my ass handed to me a couple times, but it makes it tougher. Definitely makes it tougher, and allows you to grow some thick skin. So I did that, and got in the game, and it was a great first year experience for me to play college football and understand like what it's like to play at the next level up. I thought that was cool. So then I went to I transferred from Chapman to the University of Buffalo, and the University of Buffalo is Division I football, and I knew as a 5'6" and a half, 5'7", we'll say 5'7", receiver who was 100, I think it was like 155 pounds at the time, soaking wet, maybe 150. I was small. This wasn't a chance in hell I was making the team. So I got into rugby. And this is kind of like at the very beginning of, as I started to think about my story, where I got this idea for the podcast. And it was my one of my boys, Sam Smith. Shout out to Sam Smith. Kyle Larson. Shout out to Kyle Larson. Um, they really got me into rugby because they're like, hey man, you're back in Buffalo. You have these football skills. You're really fast and elusive. You should try out rugby. So I did, and it was a friggin' awesome experience. It was great, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And I played 2 years of college rugby at the University of Buffalo. And then, as a really smart, 21 year old, I never finished college at that point, and I moved to North Carolina as a 21-year-old. And so, as a 21-year-old, as I moved to Carolina, that was the first time in my life I'd never played any sports, and I just felt that it was missing. You know what I mean? I just felt this desire to compete and I to challenge myself and to train. Like what's the saying? The end's never as good as the journey, or whatever. I know I butchered it, but you know what I'm saying. Well, that the the day to day of being getting up, going to the gym, pushing yourself against another human, like we were, doing routes and all that kind of stuff. I really, really miss that. So I worked out at a gym down there, and I met this guy, and he's like, "Hey, man, there's a semi-pro football team in the area. You should try out for it." And I was like, "Okay, well, no. I am short, and this is Charlotte, North Carolina. Like, this is legit football." So what I did though, he planted that seed in my head, and I dedicated my life to just getting bigger, getting stronger and training for football. And I did, and I tried out for this semi-pro team, and I made it, which was pretty freaking cool. So they were called the Carolina Storm, and we got to travel throughout North Carolina and play different semi-pro teams down there. Not paid, semi-pro, you're paying to play, but it's full contact, full football, or full contact, full pads, everything. You're wearing, um, it's all your own equipment, but it's an organization, and you go to play in front of fans, and the money from the fans goes to like your organization. It was amazing. It was one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had, and that was when I was like 22. Um, so when I was 24, I remember in my high school there was a guy who ran, or his name is Matt O'Malley. He was a huge influence in my life as a receiver in high school, and he had played for the Buffalo Gladiators, which was a semi-pro team in Buffalo. Now, if I had never, ever, if I was in that mindset when I was a high school athlete, thought about the Buffalo Gladiators, there was no chance of me ever playing for the Buffalo Gladiators. I didn't even know if I was going to play college ball at that point. And the Buffalo Gladiators had won multiple national championships. Like this was a legit team. So when I moved back to Buffalo, though, I was like, you know what? I have some semi-pro experience. I played in Carolina. These guys are really good. So I moved back to Buffalo and tried out for the Gladiators, and lo and behold, I made it. And I actually wound up over the course of my career with the Buffalo Gladiators, got to play in a national championship down in Florida, in Miami, and also got to, I became the captain of the team and developed some really cool personal, lifelong relationships that I will have, forever. So that was really cool. And um, the owner of the arena, the owner of the semi-pro football team actually started a professional indoor team in Buffalo as well. I'm hitting my stand here and it's shaking, so there's no earthquake here, so we're good. I'm safe. I know you were really worried. Um, but he started a professional indoor team, and I kind of used my experiences. Like, I'm not going to make a college team, made it. I'm not going to play, Division 1 rugby, made it. I'm not going to play semi-pro football, made it. I'm not going to play for the Glad. So I used these experiences to be like, screw it, I'm going to try out for that, and I remember it was a grind. I was told I was too short to make the team, but didn't stop me. Kept going to all the practices, kept doing all the workouts, and I worked my way to the starting roster. And I was a starting wide receiver in a professional indoor football team called the Buffalo Lightning. And So that was really cool. And all this is relevant in my whole story and thought process because I played that for 2 years, and then I was 28 years old, 28, 29, somewhere there. And I'm like, I just simply can't do this anymore, man. Arena football. I mean, football from eighth grade to college, you take a toll on your body, but then you go beyond that another 10 years. That's whew. So. And I understand that there are elite athletes that are in the NFL that do that for a career. I get it. Me, let's think about what the athletic trainers and what the system of concussion protocol is in semi-pro. Uh, there ain't any. So it was a toll on your body. So um, I'll never. This was a giant turning point in my life. So I ended my football career, and it was really hard for me to do because I'm self-aware. I understand that I need competition. I like to challenge myself. I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's kind of that growth mindset kind of thing, I guess. But I need that physical, competition. I don't win a lot. Don't get me wrong. I almost never win, but I like competing. You know what I mean? I have that fire in me. So I was working for a company at the time in Buffalo, and the corporate challenge came along, and the corporate challenge is a 3.5 mile race put on in Buffalo and all over the world. This is a worldwide event that corporations buy into, and it's just a really fun day. I mean, we're talking like 15,000 people running around running this race. So it's a really fun day, and then at the end you get a bunch of beer and food and stuff, and it's a good time with all your coworkers. So and it all goes to a good cause, I think, or something. But I remember I signed up for it the first year because I'm like, I just want to, try this out. I want to party. It'll be fun afterwards. It was by my house where I lived at the time. So it's like, let's do it. So I did it 3.5 miles. And I know this isn't a big deal, but my goal, my competitive, streak in me, I'm like, I want to get under 30 seconds or 30 seconds. I ran 3.5 miles in 30 seconds. I set a world record, no training. It was incredible. Yeah. I wanted to get in under 30 minutes. And that's not an accomplishment as a runner. Like anyone can do that. That's not fast. Um, but for me, I, was heavier, not heavier. I was football weight. I wasn't fat or anything, but with no endurance training. And I know 3.5 miles really isn't an endurance type race, but I wanted to get into it. So I was like, under 30 minutes, let's go. I'm doing this. So I got in at like 29:30, and I'll never forget that feeling of, I started thinking back. I'm like, okay, well, at the beginning, I was kind of, zigging and zagging, and it really wasn't, on, a clear path. So that now the wheels start turning, and now I'm like, okay, I can get into this. I can get into this racing scene. And so after that, Buffalo has a great, 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 great running scene. It is incredible. And you can go to this website, and there are 3 to 4 races almost every weekend for the entire year. And now I'm like, holy shit, this is something that like I can like just always do. Because then you start looking at, there's age group awards. So, they're in a 5 year increments. So, I was, 28, 29 at the time. So I'm like, okay, once I get to 30 to 35, new age group, 35 to 40, new age group, so on and so forth. So I started to really get into it. Now, this is where the story gets kind of weird. Um, I started running a bunch of 5Ks all over the place. I wasn't really training. I was more just, running here and there. And just if I wanted to go for a run, I'd go. There was no plan or anything. So um, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out. And when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, believe it or not, that's a game changer in my whole world. What happened was, if any of you played Grand Theft Auto, there are triathlons that you can do in them, and you do like the first 3, and then there's an Ironman triathlon as like the last one that gets unlocked. They can't call it an Ironman triathlon for obviously marketing purposes or copyright, but see the words again. I'm no good with the words. But I remember sitting there hitting X for a half hour. It's a true story. Hitting X for a half hour, and he's swimming in the water. And I think to myself, and I go, you know, I like running 5Ks, and I was the captain of my swim team in high school. See, I told you that swimming would come in. I'm like, anyone can ride a bike, right? So I called my dad and I said, Dad, um, I want to get into triathlon. The bikes, I'm looking into them, are super expensive. And is there any way that you could maybe help me out and then like maybe buy it for me and then I'll pay it back on a monthly basis or something like that? Because at 29 years old, I had no money as a normal human does, right? He's like, no problem, buddy, no problem. He gets it for me. We meet at the bike store. He gets it for me, and this was St. Patrick's Day of 2016. And I said, I was like, oh, this is great. I got fit for it and everything. Well, my first race I signed up for was like early June, maybe even late May. I think it was late May actually. Either way, very short time period between when the bike was bought and my first race. Well, in that time period, my father passed away. So I didn't have. Now I'm just like, you know what? Now I'm going as hard as I possibly can in these 2 months to do the best that I can at this race. And race day comes, I'm all excited, I'm all jacked up, and I'm in the transition area. If anyone knows about triathlon, you get there early to set up your bike and your shoes, and it's the area that you get set up in between the different disciplines. Well, I remember I met a woman who was next to me. She was just so nice. She was so friendly. I'm like, listen, I got no idea what I'm doing. Please help me. And she helped me out a lot. And she explained to me and described, the different, procedures of the race and all that kind of stuff. And I wound up coming in second place in my age group at that race. And it felt good. I'm like, did you proud, Dad? This is great. And it was on the bike that he bought me, obviously. And, it was really good. Well, at that time, I was running 5Ks every week. I was dumping money. That's probably didn't have money for a bike. I'm dumping money into friggin' 5Ks all over the place. So I was at the Buffalo Marathon 5K the day before the Buffalo Marathon. And I see that same woman at the marathon, or at the 5K. And she goes, you're pretty good. And she said, we started talking about watches or something. I forgot. But she goes, you're pretty good. There's a national championship for this. My daughter just got invited, or someone else's daughter. Listen, I told you, years of semi-pro football. This is applesauce up here. But the important part was I had a discussion with either her. Discussion started because of her, and it might have been the other guy who's like, my daughter just qualified for nationals or whatever. So now I'll never forget, me and my fiance are sitting on our bed. We're looking at a computer, and we're researching about the national championship. And then the national championship qualifies you for the world championship. They pick the top, whatevers. So now I'm like, okay, I'm going to become obsessed with this one. So the rest is history. I really went hard, put my head down, and just worked my ass off. And I wound up, it's 2020. It's July 21st, 2020 right now. I've qualified for the past 4 world championships. The first one I went to was in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. The second one I went to was in 2019 in Lausanne, Switzerland. The 2 that I couldn't make it to, the Gold Coast, and this year it's in Edmonton next month. But there's some kind of like, I don't know, people are getting sick and they got canceled or something. But in the Gold Coast, I moved from New York to Texas, so I couldn't make it, for that one. But yeah. So, and to this day, this is the bike that my dad got me, and I still ride it every day, and I still do race in it as well. So, to kind of tie it all together, that's my journey. That's how I got from point A to point B. And as I started thinking about my journey, you always think about, I can't be the only one, right? Um, if I'm thinking it, that means someone else is thinking it, right? So I started, talking to people about this idea for the podcast. I'm like, hey, you're competitive, you like sports. Would you, listen to something like this? And then people are like, I know a guy, this guy, and blah, blah, blah. And then it's just kind of like snowballed from there. So, for me, I love competing. I've said it a million times. And I was really excited to, get into a new sport. And this sport, in the 4 short years that I've been doing it, has taken me all over the world. It has taken me, from such cool experience. I get to wear the Team USA crest on my kit. See, I'm still so new. I call it the wrong names and shit all the time. I call it a jersey because I'm so used to football stuff. But it's taken me over. But the point is, if I never did that race, that 5K at my job that I had, I never would have been, to me, that was kind of like I opened the door a little bit and looked in. You know what I mean? And then I saw what was going on in there, and I'm like, I can dig it. I can get into that. Um, and then from there, the rest is history. So, what I really want to get the point across is, share this podcast with people who you think are competitive and that might be interested in learning about different sports to compete in. And I'm not talking, you dedicate your life to it and you get crazy at it. I mean, I have the world champion Can Jam guys coming up on this podcast. I have a bowler who's bowled 21 300s and does tournaments all the time. I have all these different types of athletes that I just want to expose them to and just say, wow, that sounds pretty cool. I'd like to try that. That's really the whole premise behind this. So, I hope you found my story, quasi interesting. Who the hell knows if you're still listening to this? I don't know. I'm going to put this out on the internet and we'll go from there. We'll see what I just whacked my. um, but I'm just, I'm coming from a good place. I'm coming from a place of wanting to help other people kind of, like I keep saying, I think it's the best way to put it, scratch that competitive itch. There's so many athletes out there that part of their daily lives for, their 20 years was playing sports. Then all of a sudden it just gets cut off and then you're done playing sports. You can't tell me that burning desire to compete goes away. It doesn't. So, my hope is you watch this and you go, there's a dart league that I could go to the national championships for. I could bring my family there. We could make a trip. Wow, I'm in. So that's that's the whole point of this whole thing here. So it's going to be candid, off the cuff. We're just going to have really organic, natural conversations with some really cool, high-level athletes from around the world. And, thanks for listening to my rant here. And, the only person listening right now is my computer. Maybe the CIA. You don't know what they're doing. No, but seriously, thanks for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Share away and, make sure that you tell people about this because I really do think we can build a really cool community here and, get people excited about learning about some really cool stuff that amateur and semi-pro athletes are doing around the world. All right. Well, thanks for your time. Have a great day. And we'll see you in episode 2.
Allez, de retour chez les Tontons Flanqueurs et M. Jean Balafon, Jérôme Thuan et M. Christophe Moni. Richard, c'est ta partie, c'est maintenant. Bon.
That was some good timing right there. All right. Man, that was one hell of a workout. One hell of a workout. So let's take a look at it here. Let's put on some music for the end of show entertainment here. What do you say here? All right. I remember sneaking out after dark. You to be
Lately we'd have got a vodka lemonade. We show the cool kids how to be the youth of today. We jump the fence and play in Mr. Grogan's pool. Hit call the police and we hide behind the school. We spend hours throwing stones into the sea. They were the best days of my life, I promise thee. Oh, I could be a saint while you would be the sinner. My mother used to frown when I'd invite you home for dinner. Oh, my darling, how I miss you to the day I'd give my everything to see your face again. Oh, I'm so sorry I've been distant in the past. I've written tons of letters and they'd ended in the trash. Oh, my darling, how I miss you to the day I'd give my everything to see your face again, oh, my friend. Got to 22. I remember falling so in love with you. But your parents packed your bags and moved away. Your father got a job in the Empire State. Oh, how I wish you stood your ground and stayed behind. I've loved and I've lost, but you made me feel alive. I guess you got a job, a life and a family, but I promise my heart will always have a place for thee. Oh, I could be a saint whilst you would be the sinner. My mother used to frown when I'd invite you home for dinner. Oh, my darling, how I miss you to the day I'd give my everything to see your face again. Oh, I'm so sorry I've been distant in the past. I've written tons of letters and they'd ended in the trash. Oh, my darling, how I miss you to the day I'd give my